Hey guys, it's going on about 9:30 on Tuesday. I didn't update really all yesterday because at the end of the day, like I showed you earlier, was getting really not well. I ended up actually feeling a little bit better after I took a shower and everything, but I still was like really low energy. I did manage to listen to a lot of The Way of Kings yesterday. According to the audiobook, I have just over 6 hours left of it, and I'm on page 822, I think, in my Kindle. So I have about 302 pages left of this. I'm like 72% of the way through. And again, I think that this book has just basically become this book where it is not so much a plot as it is like just following each of these characters along their respective storylines. And it's kind of like building up the world, building up the stakes. I will say the one storyline that seems to have the most amount of plot is Shalin. Shalin is a character that I really understand and respect in a lot of ways. I do think that like there could have been other ways for her to handle what was going on. Kaladin's whole plot is essentially being a bridge master. He essentially is a soldier slash slave for this like regime of some sort. There's some kind of like front linemen essentially when it comes to battle, and they always talk about how bridgemen are not supposed to survive because they are usually the ones that are the first to go when it comes to any kind of battle. And he's kind of on the front lines of fighting against the Parneshi, who are supposedly the people who had killed off the king of Alethi in the beginning of the book. And so like you're following him as he's kind of like leading a revolution of sorts, and he like talks about how over the course of his life he's had many opportunities where he has been able to try to save people who might be enslaved or being used in improper ways, and he's failed every single time, or anytime he's tried to help people, basically it's ended up in failure. He's lost people who are very close to him through that, and in the flashbacks you learn exactly how he ends up becoming a soldier in the first place when we see him in the very beginning of the book. We don't really know what happened exactly leading up to him getting captured and how he got to where he is that we see in like the most of the book, but we do see the story of how exactly he turns down his medical apprenticeship that he had been building with his father, who was also a doctor, and decides to go into battle. And quite honestly, it's incredibly heartbreaking the reason why he has to and why he feels like he needs to become a soldier, because it's almost that he has no choice. I mean, he still did at the end of the day have a choice, but he made a choice that was incredibly important for him, and it ended up actually, I think, in a lot of ways turning out poorly because of that. And then you also have Dalinar, who is kind of our third main perspective of this. You have perspectives of other people, like as things go on, all that stuff. But Dalinar is the one where he is having these visions constantly come up, and his son Adolin keeps thinking that maybe he's going mad. It was a sign that his brother, who was the one that was killed at the beginning, the king of Alethi, something he had gone through, and so everyone thinks that he might be going mad because of it, and that he's succumbing to the same thing that his brother did. But Dalinar is kind of unsure. He doesn't really know if it's 100% him just going mad, or if he's actually seeing things from like the Radiants that used to rule this land thousands of years before. Those are kind of like the three main plots of this story in terms of following the characters, but I feel like that by the end of this, I'm still gonna only give it like a 3-star because of the fact that I feel like I understand for the majority of the stories. It's very slow to the point where it is a snail's pace, and I feel like I'm enjoying it to some extent. Like I do like seeing things develop, but I almost feel like there's no point. At the same time, I feel like there is so much world building that I'm kind of getting bored, which unfortunately is what I was expecting when it came to this, when I had first started and kind of was getting into it. And I also feel like I don't gravitate to any particular character. I don't feel like I am connecting to any of them in any particular way. I also feel like there are way too many things that are brought up that are not necessary for this world. There are interludes of certain characters that are one-offs that I do not think are necessary or unimportant in terms of the overall story. But then again, there is the possibility they will play into the story later on. I just don't know at this point, but it seems like right now they're very unnecessary. And also, I do feel like I don't understand the character of Zeth much at all, other than the fact that he is a hired mercenary and he does what his master tells him to. But at the same time, like, I want to know more about him. I want to know more about why he got into this, what exactly he is, because he's got a very robotic kind of setup with him where, like, he's very much sticking to what the master tells him. He only does that. He does not have really any thoughts of his own, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I feel like that overall, this is an interesting beginning to a story, but it is not the strongest start, and honestly is really, really slow, and it's making it harder for me to want to continue with the series. I, at this point, don't understand what it is about this series people say is really good. I'm assuming something's going to happen in either books 2, 3, or 4 that is going to make this all the more better, but for a first book in a series, this is not what I was expecting, in the sense that I did not expect it to feel like it was going to be dragging on forever. And at this point, I just want to be done with it. I just want to be done with it and leave it alone and wait until I get to Words of Radiance. And I think, too, that another big contention I have with this is that because I don't feel like I fully understand everything, I do have to go and, like, look up wikis or look up, you know, full-on discussions of the world, because I feel like I'm completely lost. I don't understand how any of these characters connect. I don't understand what the whole point of some of the perspectives is. I feel like this is how I felt with a lot of the Wheel of Time series after like the 3rd book or so, because I feel like I have to constantly go back and check up on what was going on. Like, I might have listened and taken in some of the information of what happened in the chapter, but at the same time, I feel like I need to go back and, like, read a wiki page on what the heck just happened in this chapter, because I'm very lost. And yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on this right now. I would like to be able to finish this, if not today, then maybe tomorrow. And I need to get started on Sword of Kaigen. I need to get that done, because that is my book club pick for Brandy's book club membership. We are right now in the middle of Mini-GreekGodathon, which Sword of Kaigen was supposed to help me with, but I do not know if I'm going to get through all of the things I wanted to in this week, because it ends on the 30th and today's the 27th. If I can manage to get The Way of Kings done tomorrow, I will have time to definitely be able to get Sword of Kaigen done, but that's a really big book too. That's like a 600-page book. And I have a graphic novel I need to read, and I have 2 other books I need to read for Mini-GreekGodathon, but I do not think I'm going to complete that TBR, which is fine. It's not that big of a deal. I have no issue with kind of like not completing that. I would just really like to be able to, just because I feel like I want to, like, you know, be an overachiever and actually like complete the whole thing. But at the very least, though, what I could do is if I get Sword of Kaigen done at the end of the month and then get the graphic novel done, which is Descender Volume 4, I'll at least be able to complete the main 3 prompts of Mini-GreekGodathon, which is kind of more so the requirement of the readathon. The other 2 books that I wanted to read are kind of bonus, if you will. So I think that as long as I can get Sword of Kaigen done, I should be able to get Descender done too, because it's just a graphic novel. I can fly through it in like an hour. So it's not like that big of a deal, but probably White Rage and the Atlas 6, which I had as slated for other books for that readathon, I will not be able to get to, but that's fine. I have no issue with that. I will probably see if I can get them in by the end of the year, though. I would like to be able to, because I had wanted to read them for specific purposes. I'm going to go for right now, and I will check back in with you guys when I made more progress in The Way of Kings. Alright, so strap in, guys. This is going to be a long update, because I've got a lot of stuff to update you on that's happened in the last day. So, first of all, today I did finish The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Gave it 3 stars, like I had thought of yesterday. I really like the direction that stuff is going to go in with Words of Radiance. Kaladin, obviously, a very underestimated character, I would say, so I definitely completed that prompt for Bookoplothon. And I think I'm going to stop with my Bookoplothon rules because it's the 28th today, so I don't really think Sword of Kaigen is going to necessarily fit anything in particular, and I added on an extra role after completing my TBR for it anyway, so I'm pretty proud of that. Second of which, definitely am starting Sword of Kaigen today, probably a little bit later today. I'm feeling really crappy mentally right now, so I am escaping during my breaks from work playing Dreamlight Valley. I played this game for about 6 hours last night. I don't know. I played for a long time last night because I had to hide away from all my responsibilities, or at least my adult responsibilities, for the evening, because yesterday I managed to get myself set up with a doctor's appointment for the 12th to finally get myself back on some medication, and today I got myself scheduled with a new therapist. So I am done with adulting for right now. I'm so annoyed. I'm just very tired and I'm overdone. And today I found out that the job I was really excited for, that I interviewed with on Tuesday, that I was hoping was going to be the one that would call me back and say that I was getting the job, they emailed me this morning and said that they ended up choosing another candidate, which sucks. It was the one I was really, really excited about. So I'm a little heartbroken about it, honestly. I was really hoping that was going to be the one. I don't know what I might have done. I don't know what I might have said that had deterred them, or what I could have done better to have them pick me. But I'm a little sad. I'm a little sad about it. But yesterday also, I got a call from the other place that I interviewed last week, the place I interviewed with on last Wednesday. They called me and said that they're still trying to make a decision. They're going to let me know either Friday or Monday, but they are really interested in me. So that's promising. Like I had said last week, if I did not get the one I really wanted, I would still take this job if they offered it to me, because it is a good job. It definitely is paying me more than what I'm making now, and if I'm thinking correctly, it will end up becoming a little bit more of a prosperous career down the line. So I don't know. We'll kind of see. At the very least, I just want to get away from this job that I have right now. I just feel like I've done my time here and I need something different, something better, something more challenging for me. And I'm not going to lie when I say that I'm really upset that the other one I really, really wanted didn't end up working out. I do hope that they end up calling me back, though, with between now and when I hear back from this other place. If they end up calling me back and saying, hey, this person ended up taking a different offer, we would still like to see if maybe you would be interested, I would definitely take it in a heartbeat still. Whether or not that says something about the fact that I let myself be the second choice in a sense, I'm not going to get into. At the very least, I would really, really like this job. I would really, really, really like this job because it's so much better. Maybe it was too good to be true. I don't know. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I guess that was all the updates I had. Maybe it wasn't really that long. But that's all the updates I really had. I haven't really had much to say because I've been really listening to the audiobook for Way of Kings and just kind of escaping, just because of the fact that I'm very overwhelmed with a lot of things right now, and I want to escape. I want to escape into my game and be left alone and nobody bother me. I guess that's one way of coping, but it's not the healthiest way of coping with things, truthfully. But I am trying to stay positive. I am trying to, keep my mind active and keep myself excited for the future. I really would like something good to work out in my favor, but I don't know. I can wish in one hand and shit in the other, as they say, and see which one fills up first. And at this point, I'm kind of like, I will take anything that is not shit. But we're getting through it. It's about 1:30 in the afternoon right now. And I'm just kind of letting things kind of go. I sitting here listening to some music, hoping that that's going to make me feel a little bit better. Because sometimes singing along to some like music makes me feel a little bit better. It kind of like physically exhausts me to a certain degree, to where like I can feel the weight lifted off my chest in a sense, if that makes sense. I don't know if that does to anybody else, but it does to me. But I will be getting through Sword of Kaigen tonight. I think I'm gonna start trying to read it. I want to try to get through the first couple hundred pages of it tonight. The book is like 632 pages, I think, in my Kindle. So I'd like to get through the first few hundred and see where that goes. And of course, we've got people outside doing yard work. So I'm going to go, but I will talk to all you guys a little bit later when I can get through some of Sword of Kaigen. Hey guys, so it is currently 12:38 in the afternoon. I have a few updates for you. First of all, I actually just returned from going to the place I went to for my interview last Wednesday. Again, the job that I was waiting to hear back from that I was talking about yesterday. They asked me to come in either today or tomorrow to discuss more about the job. So I went in today, and it sounds like I'm 90% sure I have a new job. I say that because of the fact that it sounded like they were receptive to what I was asking for my salary. They actually said that it is likely I will end up being evaluated later on and maybe given a raise of some kind. And they even said that because they don't have a health plan, that it will either be they will help me find a health plan that they will then provide for me, or they will give me the money I need for the health plan that I would like on top of what I'm already going to be getting paid. So it sounds promising. It's a very kind of intense job. It's a job that I won't really be able to talk much about because it does involve working with an investment firm, which does involve, talking about money and very confidential information about, clients and stuff like that. So I probably won't be able to talk much about my job, but at the very least, it's a job that's going to get me out of the house for the first time in about 3 years. They are still looking to hire a second person, and they have an interview tomorrow, and will be making a decision tomorrow on that second person, I think. So the way that they made it sound like is that they want me for one of the positions, and they still have to make a final decision about the other person. They didn't outright say that, but the way that they were talking to me about the job and asking me about, making sure that they had all the information right about what I was asking for salary and anything else I wanted to bring up to them in terms of the position itself, it sounded as if that they wanted to give me the job on the spot, but they had to basically say, we got to wait for a second, we got to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row kind of thing. And they were talking about the fact that I could put my 2 weeks in the 2 weeks leading up to starting in the middle of October. I'd be able to go through stuff like my background check, be able to come in every now and then in the next 2 weeks to be able to fill out paperwork and stuff like that. So I'm fairly certain I have the job. I would be really surprised if I got a call tomorrow saying that they decided to go with somebody else, because the man that I would be working under literally said to my face that he's like, you are incredibly bright. I think you can handle this job perfectly fine. And you'll get the training you need, everything. I think that you're the perfect fit for this kind of a role. So I'm willing to believe at this point that I have a new job coming in. And that's so exciting, because even though this was the one I wasn't as excited for, the fact that they are not only going to be, giving me a raise after evaluation, and the fact that they're willing to even give me extra money so that I can go and get a new health plan and get put on, new health insurance so I can come off of my parents. That's a huge thing. That is a huge thing for me. And the fact that they very clearly are excited to work with me also is a really good thing. That is beyond exciting, but also a little bittersweet, because although I like my job, I like the people I work with, that only goes so far when you're not being paid what you're asking. And basically every chance you have the opportunity to say something about maybe getting a raise because of the fact that you're doing something like my job with only 2 people and not looking to hire anybody else, it's frustrating. And I do also feel bad in the sense that I will be leaving my coworker all on her own until they decide to either pay her more or hire somebody else to fill my position. But at the end of the day, I have to put me first. I have to be selfish for my own sanity and in order to get myself where I need to be and also make the money I need to be able to survive. Because with therapy coming up and doctor coming up as well, I will be stretched very thin. And I need a job that is going to be able to pay me well enough so that I can take care of everything. And while right now it might not seem much, like I'm making maybe $1.50 more at this point, the pure fact that they're going to evaluate and look at giving me a higher raise and again, giving me slightly more so that I can, possibly get my own health plan if they can't find something that they're comfortable with just, having given to me in a sense, that means a lot. Especially if I get the position that I think I'm getting, that could spell into even more things that I could do. It's going to be challenging for me. It's going to be different. I'm going to be able to get out of the house and still be able to come back and take care of him when he needs to and take him on a quick, potty break and everything. It's insane. All the things that could be coming with this new job. And it's exciting, but it is also incredibly terrifying at the same time. But thankfully, I'll have a couple of weeks to, get adjusted to that. And, my biggest concern still is Oscar. Because today I left him for probably all of half an hour. And last week, I left him for maybe 40 minutes for the other interview I had. And then about almost an hour for the interview for this job. And he's done fine all of those times. He's never made messes. He's never torn up anything. I think what's going to have to be the most important is that I just have to make sure that he goes potty before I leave, obviously. He has breakfast, he has water. And then when I come back, make sure that he goes potty again, has his water. And then at that point, I have to make sure that when I get home, Robert's going to probably be home before I will, depending on, a number of things. First of all, he has a car that he's working on that is practically able for him to run and be able to take to him to work and stuff, which in the next couple of weeks is going to be the other thing we're going to do, is we're going to make sure that car is up and running. His parents basically bought him a beater car for his birthday that he could work on so that he could have one, a project car, and two, so that he could fix it up so that we have two cars as opposed to one. In 2 weeks, I think we could get that finished up because when he went to work on it last week, he had to put a new battery in and it was working fine. It started up perfectly fine. But he's got to get new tires and stuff on it too, which is another thing. But we could make that happen. And the fact is, this place that I would be going to work is 10 minutes from the house. So it would not really be that much for me to be all right, I'm going to go on my lunch, which honestly, it's only half an hour. But I think if I was to explain to them, hey, I might be gone more than a half hour. I just need to make sure that I go home, I got to check my dog, make sure he's okay, take him outside, and, eat sometime in that. Which that's going to be interesting too, because I will have to manage my time well. I'm either going to have to make sure that I have sandwiches ready, or I'm going to have to make sure I eat while he's outside or something like that. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out as we go. But I actually ordered lunch for myself because I was very proud of myself. I'm also not feeling very great physically. So I was just you know what? Comfort food it is. Let's get some McDonald's. Okay, so food acquired. So now let's quickly talk about sort of Kaigen, because wow, I am loving this book. So there's a few things that need to be brought up in terms of this book. First of which being that it is way more than I thought it was going to be, truthfully. It's way more involved than I was expecting. And it's also incredibly futuristic. It's actually placed, I think, in a futuristic world, but It also it's got a lot of Japanese influence, which you can tell based on the names, the way that they speak to each other, the kind of culture that's set up around this world, and the fact that they also have certain words that we would recognize from Japanese culture currently. Like they say, like sensei, senpai, all those things. Like it's very clear to me, at the very least, that this is supposed to be a Japanese-inspired futuristic world, right? Oscar, you can't have my food. You can't have it. It's not for you. Anyway, so this is a multi-perspective story, but the main ones that we really focus on are this mother and son. Now, the mother, we learn, Mizaki, I think is her name, Miyazaki, something like that. She is a woman who has 4 children. Her eldest is about 14 years old, who we also see the perspective of in the story. And essentially what we learn about her is that in a past part of her life, she had gone to school to basically become a warrior. Now, in this world, women are not really looked at for fighting. They are looked at as really like continuing on the family lines and family legacies and all these things by producing sons who then end up actually going into training to become soldiers that then basically are used to save the kingdom or the world of Kaigen, I believe. There's also this myth, or there's some kind of like aspect of families where they have to achieve this thing for the sword of Kaigen. It's like a very mythological kind of idea. And there is also a certain point where children, when they've gone through enough schooling, will learn what's called the Whispering Blade, I believe. And that is, I think maybe in one family specifically, which is, I believe, the main family in this story. Miyazaki, the one that she married into, basically. They talk about how after a certain point he'll learn about the Whispering Blade from his father. And Mamoru's family, the one that Misaki married into, is a very prominent family. His uncle is the headmaster at the school that he goes to. His father is like basically from a family where like they are very well revered for soldiers and for like their fighting. And he's never known about his mother's past because it's also told very explicitly, mind you. So I'm going to place a trigger warning here for like domestic violence and physical abuse in general, because Misaki like gets like really rocked around by this family. It is a very patriarchal family, and so women have like basically no say when it comes to anything. And Misaki in particular, all of the men in her family, the family that she married into, so her husband's father and grandfather and all these things, they say that she is not allowed to talk about anything regarding what she did in the past, like how she was a fighter, all these things, and she's not allowed to really have any say in teaching her son in terms of helping him with fighting. They deem that as things that Mamoru's father has to teach him. And he is incredibly like emotionally abusive as well, because you learn that Misaki, ever since they got even like married, has been very distant from her, has not really ever paid attention to her. And I'm going to also place a trigger warning for miscarriages, because you learn Misaki has had 2 miscarriages after having had, I believe, Mamoru. She had 2 miscarriages before she ended up having the rest of her children. And essentially, you learn that while he was incredibly emotionally neglectful of her, he also didn't necessarily put any blame on her for her miscarriages, while his father did. Her father-in-law definitely did blame her for her miscarriages and said she was an awful woman. But I want to also say something too, that her sister-in-law that she meets, that you learn about how she meets her very quickly, is quick to say that it's not her fault. She's not an evil woman for not being able to carry a baby to term. It's just something that happens sometimes. And to hell with anybody who wants to say otherwise, kind of thing. So like a lot of stuff is challenged in here in terms of like the really difficult things. But keep in mind, this is a very patriarchal society, much more patriarchal than we see now, because at least in our world today, women have a bit of a choice in a lot of things. They have the choice to tell their kids, you know, something about their past if they choose to. They are able to take care of the children how they want, you know, especially if the father figure is not really involved. Now, it is entirely possible you can have a family in today's society where, you know, things are discussed between the parents about what might be best for the child, and like you can come to a mutual agreement. But the women have quite a bit of say. Like, they get to make their own decisions. They get to, like, do things how they want, right? And in this society, though, that is, like, the furthest thing from the truth. Women have, like, almost no standing. They're basically looked at as just baby makers, literally. Like, that is how they are looked at in this world. But it is very clear, too, that this world of Kaigen is very much separated from a lot of other places in the world. You learn very quickly that this is very much an isolated area. They have a very set amount of ideals and things that they believe are necessary. And one of the characters that Mamoru meets, who is a new classmate of his, you learn that he has been around the world a lot. And he believes that a lot of the things that they are teaching the children in school is very propaganda-esque. And this kid gets the crap beat out of him in the very beginning of the book by Mamoru. And you basically start to see Mamoru, in his perspective in particular, transitioning to that, is that he is starting to kind of see the cracks in this perfect picture he has of his world. He is aware that it is very likely that, based on this interaction he has with Kanzu, I think is his name, essentially that his view of the world is very skewed and is very jaded by Kaigen's ruling. And so he kind of has this, like, breaking of disillusionment. And it's very fascinating to see, because it's like something I wish would have happened a long time ago for a lot of people who consider themselves patriots in American society right now, where, like, they think that, you know, everything is, like, perfect and wonderful and the American can do no wrong. And, like, seeing them kind of have that image break down when they realize all of the genocide that Americans have done to, like, Native Americans and how colonizing works and all these things, like, this is such a cool book. I really, really like this a lot, way more than The Way of Kings. Because for one, I'm able to keep track for the most part of what's going on. And currently what's happening is that there's actually a war going on. There's a big battle that's been happening. The city basically gets, like, attacked by these people called the Ranganese, which I believe are a whole other sect of people within this world that they've been, like, obviously preparing for. They've been preparing for war for a long time, but which is why they have all of the sons go to school to learn to fight, all these things. So this is now where they're starting to fight. And Misaki, I think, is gonna start pulling out her skills that she should have had at her disposal many, many times. And I'm very excited. I'm about 40% of the way through. We're at page 279, chapter 14. It's good. It started off really good. It's been good. It's like, this is quality work. I'm really happy with the fact that we decided to read this, because I've been needing to read this for a long time. And I'm very happy to say that this is actually going really, really well. Like, this is, like, getting to almost that 5-star, like, range, because, like, the writing is very fun. The wit is hilarious between some of the kids. And honestly, like, I love a lot of the characters. I love Misaki. I love Setsuko, who is her sister-in-law. Mamoru, I really, really like. I love seeing his, like, story progress as he starts to see more and more of the bad things that have happened. The world is interesting by itself, because, again, this is technically futuristic. They have, like, a lot of things that are very much rooted back in, like, what you would consider, like, older time periods, but they also have technology that is starting to really ramp up in this world. It's just fascinating. It is so fascinating how ML was able to weave two very different time periods and two very different kind of cultural aspects of what I would consider to be Japan. My camera cut me off there, but Japan has, like, one side of it that's very traditional, culturally, religiously, spiritually. There are plenty of places in modern day Japan where you can still see temples and statues. There's entire Zen gardens basically dedicated to the religious things that they had developed over time, over thousands of years. And it's very well ingrained with the fact that it also is, like, a huge technological hub. It is beyond fascinating, and I'm very excited. I'm going to be listening to more of it today. I have a lot of it left to go. I feel like this is going to be something I'm going to really enjoy. I should be able to finish it tomorrow and then be able to get my last book for Mini-GreekGodathon done, which is just a graphic novel, so it'll take me like an hour to read it once I finish The Sword of Kaigen. But this book's amazing. It's beautiful. It's so well done. I love the writing of it. Like, it has hit all of those boxes I was looking for so far, especially after coming off The Way of Kings really disappointed. So I'm very excited for the talk that this is going to bring up when we have our membership talk with Brandy. So it's going to be great. But anyway, I got to get back to work and eat my lunch, and I'll talk to all you guys probably tomorrow with a final update on The Sword of Kaigen. Morning, everybody. It is about 8:30 in the morning on Friday. Happy Friday. I ended up last night actually finishing The Sword of Kaigen. I listened to the entirety of it from pretty much all of the day and into the evening as I was playing more of Dreamlight Valley, and I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. I really liked it. The only things I had issues with were I kind of feel like there was a little bit of confusion in terms of some of the characters, like names just kind of got mixed up here and there. Even like when we got to see, you know, perspectives of other characters, it wasn't like the main characters that I got like messed up. It was more of like the additional characters, the side characters. I got a lot of names mixed up because I don't know, I just couldn't quite get my head wrapped around all of them. Some of them seemed really similar to others. That was like my only big problem, because I genuinely felt like that impacted my reading of the story, because I couldn't quite keep track of when the main characters were talking, who was talking about who kind of thing, and that made it really difficult for me to like keep full focus in the story. But this is a really great book. This is a book that I did not expect to tackle on a lot of different things. And especially a lot of different things that I do think pertain to traditional cultures that kind of need to be addressed. In terms of things like breaking generational curses or generational cycles. There's a lot of talk in this book about how the men in this world are the ones that are looked at to be warriors, and so because of that they are looked at to be the strong ones. Men in this world are looked at to be strong, but you know, they're the ones that are the warriors, the ones that go off and fight, and so because of that they have to also emotionally be strong. They can't really show any kind of emotion. They can't really like showcase a lot of things that in contemporary culture, in the States at least, we are trying to advocate more for, where like men can show emotion, men can be emotional. And Oscar very much wants to play this morning, so I'm going to apologize because I'm going to be kind of playing with him as I talk. But anyway, another thing too within this, and within that aspect as well, is that one of our characters that we have in the story, who is Mamoru's father, he is somebody that comes from a very violent kind of upbringing, if you will. Because like I talked about before, not only does he emotionally neglect his wife, but his father also physically abuses in some ways his wife. So there's a lot of like generational curses that are brought up, especially toward the end of the book, this idea of breaking those curses, because during the war that takes place in the story that happens about halfway through the book, there's a lot of death involved, and there are a lot of people who die that cause Mizaki and her husband to like really reevaluate a lot of things about their marriage, a lot of things about their lives and like how they live it. And so it's one of those stories where not only does the book pertain to the idea of, you know, looking at a futuristic world where it still feels very traditional, and it talks a lot about, you know, the idea of these kids, these young boys going to school to learn to fight and preparing for an impending war, but there's a lot of nuance that goes on in with that within the characters themselves. I would consider this to be more of a character-based story, because there isn't really too much of a plot other than like when the war happens, you know, there's things that you learn about Mizaki and Mamoru and, you know, their family and all those things, but it's really a snapshot in a period of time for this family, and in very particular for Mizaki, the mother. She is more so the main character in all of this. Mamoru doesn't really get much of a chance to, like, grow, and there's a very specific reason for that. And I don't want to say without spoiling anything, but there's a reason why he doesn't get a lot of growth in the story, which I totally understand. But this is really Mizaki's story. I mean, everything I had heard about this book leading up to it was about the fact that this was a mother's fighting story. This was a mother that would go to battle for her sons, quite literally. And in the story, you do see that to some extent. You do see this mother go into battle because, for one, you learn about her history. You learn about her past, which is she had gone to a school to learn to fight and had her own experiences. And you learn that in that she had friends, she had people she cared about, and a lot of it she had to leave behind when she became a wife and a mother because, you know, she was told that none of that mattered, that, you know, whatever happened to her is not important and she should never speak of it, all these different things. And so there's a lot to go into this story, but it's a story about motherhood, it's a story about family, about breaking generational curses and standing up for yourselves and being, I think, also in a lot of ways authentic to yourself. And also a lot of talk is brought up on Mamoru's side about the fact that just because your country thinks that it's the biggest and greatest thing in the world, or your home thinks that, it doesn't mean it's necessarily true. And if they keep pushing that rhetoric, there's something desperately wrong, because that then leads to the idea that we learn about in this book where the country's literally pushing propaganda to make it seem like they're the best and greatest things in the world, when in reality they're very either backwards or they are not really taking into account the rest of the world and also what they could be doing that is harmful to their people. There's a lot of talk about that goes on in that. So really interesting conversation I think we're going to have with the book club for this in October. But I really enjoyed this a lot. So I don't know if you can see that package right there, but that's not for me. I have to take that out to the post office later today because they sold one of my books that I had put in my September unhaul. So if you haven't watched that video, I highly suggest you do so. I have quite a few books that went up for sale in my Pango books. So if you would like to grab any of those, you're free to. But I will be starting today Descender Volume 4. This is basically a futuristic world where we have AI, we have travel to different planets, things like that. And essentially this all takes place in a world where there was this AI revolution that happened, and essentially all of the AI had revolted against the more humanoid things and alien lives, and they basically went and massacred a lot of them. 10 years later, Tim 22 awakens from that slumber he was in to find that his brother, or the human that he was basically charged with being the companion of, and the boy's mother are no longer there, and there seems to be very little life on the planet that he was living on. And it turns out that when he wakes up, that this alarm goes off for several different people who are looking for these AI because they're looking to basically eradicate them since they had all gone rogue, and ever since that massacre had ended and the AI had essentially fled, the people and other aliens were like, any AI we come across immediately is being deconstructed and all these different things. So a lot of people are after Tim 22. There's also some people who are looking to maybe help him, but we really don't know who is doing what. And this is the 4th volume of that. In the last volume, we got a lot of backstory on several of the characters that we've seen in this series, and it was really fun. It was my favorite so far of the series, and I think now we're going to go into actually furthering the plot, because we got the backstory leading up to some of the very drastic events that were happening in the story. We learned a lot about all of the characters involved in the story in that 3rd volume, and this one we're gonna, like I said, go further into the actual plot of the story, which I don't know what to expect. I think that Tim 22 is going to join up with this resistance to some extent because he is trying to find his brother. That's one of the things that he's been searching for, is the little boy that was supposed to be his companion, who we do learn in the 3rd volume is completely grown up. He is a fully fledged adult. He has actually been looking for Tim for a long time since he was able to get the first chance to. But I think this would be really good for anyone who is looking to get into sci-fi. I mentioned this in my podcast when I was doing a genre talk on sci-fi, where this is a great series to get into when you do not really know where to get into sci-fi, because this at least will give you a few different things to look into, you know, space travel, anything to do with technology and AI, you know, those kinds of things. And interspecies relations, you know, that kind of thing too. So very excited to continue with this. I will be actually getting started with this here in a couple minutes because my break is coming up from work, and I would like to get through some of this before I continue with Dreamlight Valley. I'd like to get that done by the end of the day since it's the last day of the Bookoplothon and Mini-GreekGodathon. Oh, I didn't even mention, Sort of Kaigen completed 2 prompts for Mini-GreekGodathon, which were The Beauty of the Box, which was to read a book with a beautiful cover or title, and Turn the Key, which was to read a book that was in a new world or a portal fantasy. And Descender Volume 4 is completing the final required prompt for Mini-GreekGodathon, which is Unleash Its Evil, which is to read either a villain origin story or a story with a large villain. The AI Revolution, AI Resistance group is definitely the villain in this. They are pretty awful based on what I learned in Volume 2 and 3. But we are going to continue with that here shortly. I'm going to go ahead and get back to starting with work, and I will talk to all you guys later. Hey guys, it's about 1:30 in the afternoon now, and during my lunch I ended up finishing Descender Volume 4. So finally got my last book for the month done. Very happy with that, and I rated it a 4 out of 5 stars. I liked it. It definitely wasn't nearly as good as like the 3rd volume though. Like, it was really good. It wasn't so much filler. It actually like really developed the plot a lot more. But I don't know. It just didn't hit the same way that Volume 3 did. But the ending of it was pretty intense. I have 2 volumes left of this series, and then there is a secondary series that there's only 4 volumes in that I would like to read eventually. But Descender, like I said earlier, was fulfilling the Unleash Its Evil prompt for Mini-GreekGodathon, and that is all I'm going to be able to get to today. I did complete the 3 required prompts for the readathon, and basically after that point you could do the other 2 that you wanted to, which basically were like the endings. They were like bonus prompts basically, but I'm not going to have enough time to complete either of the books I wanted to read for those by the end of the day. It is not possible, but